everybody, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thank you for joining me. This is going to be our weekly astro weather combined also with just a little bit of the end of 2021 recap, and we're going to talk probably a little bit more about the new moon in Capricorn, which is coming in later this week, and that is going to be on the 2nd of January. So I'm going to kind of go in a different order than usual. As per all my videos, if you guys stay tuned to the end, I'm going to give you tarot and astrological predictions for each and every one of the 12 signs. So this might be a bit of a long one because we're kind of doing the recap and a little bit of everything. So I appreciate your patience and staying with me. Those of you guys who watch the video all the way through, I'd really appreciate it if you wouldn't mind putting timestamps. That would be really helpful for people who just want to kind of go ahead and skip to the end. So thank you in advance if you're able to do that. It's hard to believe that it is the end of 2021. Certainly the transits have been rather intense, especially like the last week or two, just with the Venus retrograde, the conjunctions to Pluto, but also this entire holiday week, we have been under kind of the beams of the very final of 3 Saturn-Uranus squares. So just to kind of wrap up 2021, those of you guys who want a little bit of an overview of what has happened in this last year, the big news is really that 2021 started with a stellium of planets that were in the late degrees of Capricorn and in the early degrees of Aquarius. So if you think back to what was happening in January going into February, really leading up to what was a stellium of planets eventually in Aquarius. So if you think about the end of January, pretty much all of February, that was a very interesting, unique time. It was almost like we were kind of still getting our sea legs and learning to work with all of that Aquarian energy. It's not unusual to see Venus and Mercury in the same sign as the sun. Generally, they're within a couple signs of each other. But to have Saturn and Jupiter also in the mix was particularly important because there was like this theme of expansion and contraction that we were learning in all of 2021. But we saw this time of planets, like I said, Venus, Sun, Jupiter, Saturn, Mercury, all in Aquarius. Think back to what was kind of happening and take a look at the end of January all the way through February of 2021. Like early this year, in the beginning of 2022, we also had a Mercury retrograde in Aquarius. So we'll talk about the Mercury retrogrades of 2021. Those of you guys who want my 2022 video and you want to know what's going to happen, join me for the live that I'll be doing on New Year's Day. This is just the recap for this year. But yeah, take a look back on what happened. You know, it was interesting to see Saturn in Aquarius, which is one of the rulers of Aquarius. It's the traditional ruler, Saturn. Saturn really insisted that we stuck to the plan and that we committed to making changes for the future. While Jupiter kind of encouraged us to grow, but it was still kind of under that Saturn vibe. So we saw lots of like 2 steps forward, 1 step back that happened intermittently throughout the year. So look to where Aquarius is in your chart to get an idea of where you were kind of doing the most exercises in 2021 and helping plan for the future. So if we break this down, Saturn was in Aquarius. It helped us buckle down, think about making major changes for the future, becoming more self-reliant, that was a theme, and fearless, and possibly even thinking more about the future. Now, Jupiter in this sign brought expanded optimism. In some cases, it did put a little bit of a damper because it was very close to Saturn and in Saturn's sign. So we saw like the off and on patterns of social distancing. It comes and goes, stop and go with travel and things like that. But however, it showed us that working with Saturn really helped us achieve our goals and better plan for the future. Now, Uranus remained in Taurus all year. It's been helping us work towards reevaluating our values and what we deem valuable or even beautiful, right? So it's into Taurus. Taurus is a Venus-related sign. We saw the rise and fall of crypto and then more rising and more falling. NFTs, major innovations in style, and talking more about where our food is coming from and the physical body. Now, throughout this year, there was a lot of friction with planets in fixed signs. So if you think back to February and May and August and November, that was riddled with the Saturn-Uranus squares that was being amplified because we had the Sun and also Mercury and even Mars that was moving through some of these particular signs, really enacting, grand fixed crosses for some people. Now we had 3 Saturn-Uranus squares. If you think back to 2021, the first one took place in February, the second one was June, and finally this last week in December was the third. And usually that's the one that packs the punch and there's like fireworks. So pay attention to whatever's been going on in this last week to give you some insight as to whether or not you're bending and pivoting appropriately, or if there's like a lot of friction going on in certain areas of your life. We'll talk about that. Or actually I would say look at my last video that I did. I talk about where the square is going to happen for most people. Where there's friction right now is because you're still needing to innovate. Okay, so some people are like flying high. They're like, it's great, everything's different, I love this. Other signs aren't really doing so well with this still, and I would say 2021 is almost the dress rehearsal for 2022. So this is kind of like the training wheels all year, because next year we're still going to see that you know, Saturn and Uranus will be at some points within 1, 2, 3 degrees still enacting that square. Granted, they won't be an exact square like we've seen several times this year, but we're still going to feel that energy of needing to pivot and change. Sometimes when we see Saturn-Uranus squares, there's bending to the point of breaking points, breaking agreements, breaking relationships, breaking tradition, right? So whenever we see Saturn and Uranus square, there's this theme of like tradition versus innovation, the past versus the future, old versus young, right? So, and like I said, look at when these took place in 2021, just to get an idea of what was happening. Was this last square intense for you? Let me know. Where is Taurus and Aquarius in your chart? These are the 2 places that you want to really take a look, because the truth is that next year, the nodes move into the signs of Taurus and also Scorpio. We're going to see Saturn square the nodes, and we're going to see Uranus conjunct the nodes. So Uranus will conjunct the North Node in Taurus. So we're still doing this sense of, you know, January, February, lots of Aquarius work, April, May, lots of Taurus innovation work, and then we're going to get to August of 2022, and we'll see the North Node Uranus conjunction. So the way that I would put it is 2022 in a lot of ways is going to be very similar to 2021. The sweet spots may get sweeter. So those of you guys who have seen positive changes, maybe you've made job changes, relationship changes, that will continue to stay sweet, or will even get better to some extent. However, those of you guys who have struggled this year and you've been unwilling to adapt and really make the changes that are necessary, where Saturn is in Aquarius and where Uranus is in your chart in Taurus, you may see further kind of like dragging out, you know, especially for the fixed sign. So if you're a Taurus or a Leo or a Scorpio and Aquarius, you guys are the ones who are now kind of getting hit with these even harder because of the nodal changes and the eclipses, especially if you have any personal placements like Sun, Moon, or Rising in Scorpio or Taurus. You guys are going to be the ones who are going to, I think, see the most change. So this aspect, like I said, it teaches us and encourages us to bend and adapt and pivoting to accommodate both lessons. So 2022 is going to be a lot like 2021, where it's like every 3 months we really feel the wheel turn and we have to kind of make changes in a sequential order. It's not something that comes all at one time. So I think that we've got the hang of it a little bit more now. So I have faith that it'll pan out okay. But like I said, it's preparation for what's coming in this next year, and we're going to see the Saturn-Uranus squares all year long. So 2021 was training wheels. Now, this year we also saw Mercury retrogrades throughout the air signs. So think back to like February, May going into June. We also had one during Libra season. And now we are going to actually have another one that's going to start in Aquarius and retrograde back into Capricorn, and that'll be taking place in January. But basically, you know, with Mercury retrogrades and air signs, it's teaching us to communicate better, share new ideas, think about relaying information, how we relay information. Are we communicating effectively? Are we using common sense? You know, are we backing things up with facts? Are we making changes in the way that we communicate and express ideas? So all of these retrogrades this year, thankfully, were in aspect to either the North Node in Gemini or Saturn and Jupiter in Aquarius. So I actually kind of liked the retrogrades. I felt like it was really helpful. There was always kind of that nice trine pointing to either Jupiter or Saturn, which was helping us kind of maintain the lessons and really integrate, or to the North Node in Gemini, which was really helping us be able to just learn how to communicate and share ideas. Now, because they were all an aspect to each other, it was really assisting us in making changes all year long. And what I want you guys to know is that what you've learned about communicating or seeing two sides of a situation or learning how to debate or anything relating to just sharing of information and letting go of this belief that we know everything, it's helping us stay open and learn how to better work with other people, right? And being more so objective is something else that I would say kind of comes from this. The North Node has been in Gemini in all of 2021, expanding how we share news, understand, innovate, and communicate. And it's really, really amped up communication platforms, social media, things like that. Oftentimes it was providing, though, two different ways of interpreting something. So with squares to Neptune, we saw the rise and fall of fact-checking, fake news, and all sorts of media deception and misleading information. Thankfully, we're going to move out of those squares to Neptune. We're not seeing that with the nodes in this next year. I'm really liking that we're going to have Jupiter in Pisces. I'm really liking that the North Node is also going to make aspects to Neptune. So we're going to kind of move away from Gemini and all this air energy, which is like kind of like ideas. And I've been telling clients as soon as the North Node, the true North Node next month moves into Taurus, we're going to begin to see physical change, right? Physical change because it's an earth sign, and it's also going to aspect both Pluto but also all these planets that are in Capricorn. So the way that I see next year kind of going is that we're building up until we get to the spring, and then we're really going to start to see some change. Those of you guys who are like, when's it going to happen? The South Node was in Sag all year, teaching us to let go of the need to be right all the time. It affected international travel, the justice system. It affected higher education. You know, we saw the breakdown of the travel industry. And I think that it just created a lot of conflicts with the South Node in Sag, really kind of showing us where we are kind of going out too big, or we're too focused globally, or we're kind of in everybody else's affair, bringing the energy back into the North Node in Gemini, which is communicating in our networks, our close friends, our close family, traveling more so locally, focusing on what we've got going on in our little worlds, right? The year wraps up with a Venus retrograde and a number of conjunctions to Pluto and Capricorn, which we're in the midst of right now, where we begin to examine what needs to change or transform or die off essentially in some aspect of our life. So this is where you want to look at Capricorn in your chart. Capricorn is very much under construction really until about March. To some extent, there may be something that we are unwilling to let go of or unwilling to transform. And it'll take the next few weeks for this to really kind of clear out, really making way for what will then be Aquarius season in 2022 and helping us kind of adapt. So like I'm going to keep telling you guys, this resistance that we've been feeling has been coming up, I think, a lot, especially in the late degrees of Capricorn. We're going to see this for the next couple of weeks. There's too many limitations, too many boundaries, too much structure, too much control, power struggles, people wanting to tell us what to do. And micro, macro, whether it's like the boss at work or this is like conflicts that you're having within, you know, the family structure. We're going to kind of see this across the board for everybody. And I encourage you guys to examine what needs to change and where there's some kind of power struggle going on that's really limiting your ability to kind of grow. If you want to know more about the Venus retrograde, I do talk about that in one of my previous videos. Just check out my list. You'll see me kind of discuss that. I also go a little bit into the Venus retrograde, I think in the Pluto return chart. I talk about how it's going to affect things economically, but really it's going to happen all the way until the end of January, and then it doesn't even really leave shadow, begin to move out of Capricorn until early March of 2022. So that's the recap. If you just want to get an idea of like what's been changing, look at where all these placements are in your chart and how that has affected you. Let's go ahead and get into the astro weather for this week, for the week of December 27th through January 3rd, 2022. Okay, so the week kicks off with today, December 27th, and the moon is in Libra currently, and it's in its last quarter square, basically, before we have the new moon that's taking place in the new year. So the last quarter square is always kind of like this crisis point. It's a little uncomfortable also because it's making aspects both to Chiron, in opposition to Chiron, and also it's been squaring both the sun and also Mercury. So there's some uncomfortability in the air. There's no real getting around that. Venus is still retrograde and it's conjunct Pluto, but it will start to begin to leave the Pluto conjunction tomorrow, so that'll be on the 28th. So the last couple days have been rather intense, both with Venus retrograde conjunct Pluto, really showing us some really painful things in regards to power struggles at work, with superiors, with family, with relationships, and it's moving out of the conjunction with Pluto. So that's going to be nice. We're going to get a little bit of a break, so it'll start to kind of pass tomorrow. On the 28th, we see the moon in Libra actually move to square Pluto and Venus. So just a heads up, the 28th is going to be a little uncomfortable in the morning, okay? Definitely a time to watch. Tempers are going to be a little bit on edge. Moon square Pluto in itself is already kind of uncomfortable, but with the square also to Venus and Mercury, and it's coming into the dark of the moon pretty soon, right before we have the new moon, so it's like balsamic. People are grumpy. Really the 28th through the 30th, people are going to be a little bit more shorter tempered, and I feel like it's going to be harder to relate. Usually the moon in Libra is pretty good about that, but it's almost like having its breakdown. So there may be some kind of breakdown in expressing yourself in relationships. You know, the moon, when it's in a square to Mercury or Venus, especially when they're conjunct, it's almost like two parties want to start something when it's in cardinal signs. So the moon in Libra teaches us to partner, but with Venus still in the mix with Pluto and Mercury, watch your words. Communication can be kind of intense really this whole week, and it can create a lot of friction, especially in partnerships or relationships. Now, we also see that on the 29th of this week, finally, Jupiter enters Pisces again, and it's here to stay, and it will be here really until spring of 2022. So I will do a chapter 2 of the Jupiter and Pisces transit. I wanted to wait until it got back in there, but I do have a video that's up that I did in the spring of this year, actually right when Jupiter moved into Pisces. It was funny, I was in New Orleans and it was like pouring, so it was so appropriate. But I talk a lot about the future predictions and how I anticipate it's going to kind of pan out, and was really excited to wait for it to kind of come back. I'm waiting for like the sun to start sextiling Jupiter in a couple days before I make a video on that, so stay tuned for that. Venus is retrograde conjunct Mercury in Capricorn, and it's at a 24. So there's a lot of like going back to something. Remember, Venus is bringing us back to something. So when it's retrograde conjunct Pluto and Venus, there's going to be this theme on the 29th of what did we talk about? What did we agree to? And it's harder to find peace when Venus is retrograde. So there's going to be this like back and forth energy happening on the 29th of, you know, are we sticking to the plan? Are we following things through? You know, did we talk about this? And it can be a time to really turn inward and think a lot about what we value, and also be paying attention to like emotions and how you're feeling about going back and forth with somebody or something. Once again, quite an intense day on tap. Now, we're also going to see in the midst of this that the moon moves into Scorpio, and it's going to make an opposition to Uranus and a square to Saturn. Another intense day on the 29th. Moon opposed Uranus is kind of like unexpected shocks and rattles and rolls. And then with the square to Saturn, it's kind of like this gridlock that's happening where like not everything is going to necessarily happen according to plan. Now, when the moon is in Scorpio, we find that there is a little bit more intensity, or people are a little bit more in their feelings than usual. So that doesn't really help with the squares to both Saturn and Uranus. On this day, we also see the sun in Capricorn form a square to Chiron in Aries. So that's another time that you guys want to watch out and just be mindful that with all of this like kind of Pluto energy, Mercury, Venus conjunct Pluto, we've got, you know, sun square Chiron, moon in a Pluto-based sign. Some intense exchanges, I think, are going to be had. Now, with Mercury, Venus coming together and Venus retrograde, there can be a lot of hearing from the past, reflecting on the past. So people can be calling you from your past. You may be getting emails from people from the past unexpectedly. Definitely with this conjunction, I think it's important to pay attention, because Venus will come back to these degrees ultimately end of February, early March. We will also see that Mercury will retrograde to right around these degrees as well when it retrogrades from Aquarius back into Capricorn. So be mindful of New Year's intentions, what you're saying you're going to do, if you actually follow through with this, if you're maintaining this in a couple weeks or a couple months time. So we'll address that in a later video, but I would just say definitely a day to feel things out. There's a lot of 24s going on, so that makes me kind of feel like it might be intuitive hits. It might be a dream or a vision or something that you feel like, I just have this feeling this person's going to call me, and then you get like a text from them. You know, that kind of stuff can kind of happen this day. All right, so then on the 30th, so this whole week is just like so action-packed. Oh my goodness. On the 30th, Mars in Sagittarius moves to 12 degrees. Now you might go, what's the big deal about that? But you're going to see what's going to happen. Mars is going to activate the eclipse that we had back in Sagittarius on December 3rd, 2021. So Mars is action or severing or cutting or moving forward with something. So there's going to be this theme like the 30th of December through the 3rd of January. That's like, okay, we're getting going with something. So Sag is kind of getting really activated in this chart, especially on the new year. I feel like Mars activating the eclipse point is an interesting one because Mars has been kind of in aggravation and creating this quincunx to Uranus and Taurus. So it's been trying to kind of reconcile that. And I feel like it's going to blow the doors off of everything in the new year that's going to actually get us moving and getting us more motivated. I like Mars and Sag though. I like the energy. I feel like it gives us the ability to get things done, to problem solve, to think about the bigger picture, and to remain optimistic, especially because it's in positive aspect to Saturn. But whenever a planet, especially Mars, crosses an eclipse point, whatever you were talking about doing in early December, it's like time to get the show on the road, right? Now, then we have on the 31st of the month, so on New Year's Eve, Moon and Mars are going to then conjunct. So it's going to bring up this theme of like, well, are we doing it? Didn't we say we were going to do it? Aren't we making this move? And it's in aspect to Saturn. So I think that's kind of the saving grace. It's a great day for taking action, right? Moon, Mars. It's also wonderful for clearing things out because we're going to be in the dark of the moon. So it's right before the new moon. We want to wait until after the new moon or when the moon is a couple degrees away from the sun for us to actually get started on something. I'm going to talk about that with the new moon chart. But I have written this down in my calendars, like, get stuff done, clear things out, get ready, make everything, you know, kind of orderly, and just stay active is the one thing that I would say, because it's clearing something out right before you get to Capricorn. Sag is awesome also because like that energy, because it's 12 signs away from Capricorn, is the belief. It's the I can do it. It's possible. I have the vision. I see the way. So it's going to, in the midst of what has been a very uncomfortable week or two, kind of help us see the silver lining and kind of go, no, it's fine. We can make this happen. We can make this work. And then we get into the first, so January 1st, 2022, the moon in Sag is squaring Neptune in Pisces. So that's going to be something that we're seeing really in the, the late hours of the 31st into the morning of the 1st. Just a little thought on that. One thing I would say is like definitely be mindful of liquids, drinking, driving, traveling. I feel like because Sag deals with traveling and Neptune does deal with like borders, boundaries, places, I think we're going to see a continuation of hiccups and issues also with traveling and air, by plane. And I've talked about this the last couple months. I'm not thrilled to see it happening in the news, but we're seeing thousands of flights that are being canceled because of the newest variant that's kind of going around. And lots of people having issues kind of getting back and forth over the holidays. I think this is going to continue clear into the new year. So just be mindful that if you are traveling on New Year's Eve or New Year's Day, whether it's by air or, you're anywhere around water, or if you're driving, make sure you're sober. Don't be drinking. Don't ever be drinking and driving. But especially this particular New Year's seems like it's going to be riddled with like legal issues, law issues, because of the square from Sag to Neptune and people not always being super aware. On the flip side, it could also be that people are just more observant and aware that, there are issues with this new variant. Maybe people are being a little bit more cautious. So we're going to have to see how that plays out. And then that leads us to the 2nd of the month, where we are going to have this new moon in Capricorn. This day also, before I get into the new moon and the aspects, Mercury moves into Aquarius. So we're going to see that change, which is really a fun one. I think that Mercury moving into Aquarius really gives us the opportunity to open up. And I think that it's exploring new ideas, sharing with the masses. Granted, Mercury is in shadow officially once it's gone into these degrees, so it's going to retrograde back over. So we may start seeing the shadow issues start kind of popping up just as early as the beginning of the year, okay? So the new moon's going to come in hot on the 2nd of January, 2022 at 10:33 a.m. Pacific time, 1:33 p.m. Eastern. Check your clocks and your time zones. You may need to adjust that if you're in other parts of the world. This is going to be a new moon that's going to be at 12 degrees. Let's get this up here so you guys can see that. There we go. Close enough. It's going to be at 12 degrees. So I'm going to read you guys, see if I have my book here, my Sabian symbol book. Yes, I do. We're going to read 13 degrees of Capricorn because we round up. So those of you guys who have not seen my videos, I love working with this book, Screen of Prophecy. Just gives me a little insight, food for thought, just to kind of reflect on and meditate on whenever I'm working with particular degree placements. So let's read this and then we'll get into the aspects. A lot of people have been telling me that they've been using this book and they've been going day by day and just even like reading the one for the daily for the sun sign, you know. Sometimes you'll see a lot of stuff pop up that's quite literal. All right, so let's find 13. Here we go. All right, so 13 degrees of Capricorn. A fire worshiper, keyword magic. The magician. The symbol speaks to the strength and comfort of that the individual experiences when he realizes that he is not adrift or alone in the universe, but is inseparably linked with his creator. It also speaks to the miracle of spiritual transformation that comes with awareness. The image of a fire worshiper symbolizes devotion and offering, dedication of everything an individual has to a higher power. The emphasis is on dedication, is on release from material bondage and the limitations of the physical realm. On one hand, this image suggests a primitive and superstitious act of obedience. On the other, it dramatizes an act of faith, therefore alludes to inspiration and hope. It also alludes to belief in magic and the supernatural. Positive at its highest, the symbol represents mastery and extraordinary ability to make things happen according to personal will and desire through an effective alignment with the creative power of the universe. Negative is delusions. The accent is on self-empowerment. You can be feeling especially competent, that you can really make things happen today. See, it's coming up. Your greatest advantage lies in tackling your most important projects. Your intuition will lead you to people and resources that you need to get the job done. Devotion, dedication, faith, belief, enchantment, mysticism, mystery, spiritual. Interesting. Guard against getting carried away with enthusiasm, trying to do too many tasks at once, and responsibilities you aren't capable of handling. Interesting. So obviously different degrees, but I think that it's kind of cool that with Mars and the moon meeting right before the new moon, it's like, nope, I'm going to get this done. I know everything's working out for me. That's one thing, as silly as it sounds, that it'll get you a long way the next month or two. Just being like, everything's going according to the plan. I may not be completely aware of the blueprints, but we're just going to keep on keeping on. And reminding yourself that's like, okay, you know, whatever's happening, this is happening for a reason. And maybe you need somebody to help you get your taxes in order and you don't know how to find them, but you're just remaining open, knowing the right person is going to show up, or finding a job, or getting a task done. I feel like in the next couple of days, we're going to see coming off of the Saturn-Uranus square that we're like, okay, this is the issue. And really, we're going to need clear until about February to kind of work certain things out. So trust that there's a method to the madness, and some of the stuff that's kind of going on is really important. So probably one of the bigger themes, if I were to break down the aspects of this, is, you know, Capricorn is about legacy, power, control. It can be about showing up and getting the job done. It can be about responsibility, parenting, big business, or anything relating to older people in society. Remember, it's a cardinal earth sign and it's ruled by Saturn. So for all of these planets to be in Capricorn, for Saturn and Mercury also to be in Saturn-related signs, it's Saturn's party. It's going to be Saturn's party pretty much for the next month and a half. So there can be this feeling of when the new year starts, it's like, okay, everything's great, moon's in Sag. And then as soon as the moon begins to move into Capricorn right after the new year, it's like, okay, back to work. Like this feeling of responsibility and things never ending, like this constant like to-do list almost, right? So I would say try not to let that hinder you. Try to be open and also aware that there are some really positive aspects to this new moon. I have waited all year for this new moon because I feel like Capricorn energy is great for just really getting things done, but also strategizing and knowing the best time, how much time, when to get something in order, things like that. So I've waited all year to do that, to reorganize my house, because I was like, all right, I'm going to come up with a schedule and do this, this, and this, knowing that when these transits happened, had I not done it, or if I had done it, it would have been kind of rearranged anyway. So it's a great way to start off basically the new year, to kind of get everything organized. Not liking Saturn square Uranus, so it's still happening. We're still feeling it. Granted, it's fading, but it's this ongoing friction of old versus new. What has always worked, what we've always done, what time schedule always worked for us, what job or responsibility, how we've always kind of shown up for that, and how Uranus is throwing a bomb into situations, going, no, we're gonna screw that up. We're gonna change everything around and see what we can kind of throw into the mix to possibly stress you out, but also teach you to adapt and be open to making change. Remember, Uranus and Taurus wants us to get in our bodies, right? It wants us to be present. It wants us to be present with the experience of what feels good, what's pleasurable, what tastes good, what smells good, what brings us more love, right? So you guys will really start to see that next year, where Uranus is almost kind of like this mad scientist or magician that's created lots of conflict to get you very physically present. So we'll talk more about that in the new year, especially as we get more planets, and the North Node that's in Taurus. We'll do a video on that. We've got the sun and the moon that are in trine to Uranus and Taurus. So a little bit of razzle dazzle, changing things up a bit, quite literally, physically, financially. It can definitely rock and roll and give us the opportunity to see that sometimes actually having goals revolving around creating change rather than just the same old is going to get us excited and a little bit more open and optimistic. So it's a great day to strategize for the rest of the year. It's a great day to think about making changes in your physical routine, in your financial routine, in your work routine, and things like that. We are also going to see that the sun and moon form a sextile to Neptune and Pisces, creating visions and inspiration for the future. So here's what I really like. Even though this is a bit of a more challenging Capricorn season, the sextiles that we're seeing happening to both Jupiter, but mostly Neptune, is kind of like allowing us to envision a future. Yes, we feel kind of restricted and under this kind of like Saturn rule right now, where it's harder to travel, harder to do the things that we want to do. For some people, they're not even going back to work yet. So we're going to see that Neptune is basically saying, okay, it can be ecstasy or agony. Yes, you're perhaps secluded or isolated, but what are you learning in the process of that? What is that teaching you about your connection to source, or what you believe in, or what you are giving your faith to, right? So I like actually the Venus-Pluto sextile to Neptune. I feel like it's allowing us to actually practice more empathy and be more aware of where Pisces is in our chart, and where we are very emotional, and that we're coming into a year that's going to be more about giving rather than receiving. It's going to be more about achieving goals rather than just achieving numbers in a bank account. So we're going to start thinking more about our spiritual visions, and if that's really lining up with our physical actions, and where visions and inspiration for the future can actually help us better strategize where it is that we want to go, right? So we've also got sun and moon in Cap in a square to Chiron and Aries, taking things a little personally, feeling a little personally attacked, especially in a sense of like whether or not you're getting enough done, or whether or not you're staying on task, or whether or not you're feeling productive. Certainly that's been coming up all week. Mercury enters Aquarius, exploring new ideas. Like I said, it's in shadow, so you guys may start feeling the effects of the Mercury retrograde. Usually the shadow can be a little bit more intense than the retrograde itself. Mars is in a square to Neptune and Pisces. Very confusing. Sometimes it can be about not thinking things through. Like, taking actions and realizing that it was not executed appropriately, or that we didn't have all the information or the facts. Mars wants to just cut, or it wants to move forward, and Neptune's a little confused. Now this is in mutable signs. So I'm anticipating that this is going to be also a peak time where we're starting to kind of see pivots happening, just in regards to how we are approaching this new variant with the pandemic. And it's going to be a bit of a tipping point, I think, as a result of this lunation. So it'll be a 30-day period where we start to see, well, is it really going to affect travel again? Is it going to affect people going back to school? Things like that. And then we've got Venus in Capricorn is sextiling Neptune in Pisces. With Venus retrograde, though, I think it's a bit of a wait and see approach to love, career, investments, finances. So Venus is still feeling a little tightened. I've said this several times. When Venus is retrograde, it's harder to find peace, especially if you're a Venus-based sign. So if you have a lot of Taurus or a lot of Libra in your chart, or your top 3, that can definitely create a lot more friction in these areas of your life. Then we've got, well, we'll get to the third in a second, but it's like I look at this and I'm like, all right, at the very least, you've got a lot of Earth making aspects to, Uranus. So changes on the agenda. It's inevitable. So you want to look at where Capricorn and Taurus is in your chart. If you are a cardinal sign, anywhere between 10 and I would say 14 degrees, you're going to feel this the hardest. So that's going to be the Aries, Cancer, Libras, and Capricorn. Capricorn, Sun, Moon, Rising. You guys are really, really going through a period of transformation. Try to be patient with yourself. Be kind to your body. It's the best thing I can tell you. If your birthday falls within, let's say, 48 hours, so if it's like on the 1st, 2nd, or 3rd, your birthday's on a new moon, which is a brand new clean slate. So it's really exciting for the new year. As with all new moons, when the sun and the moon come together, it's representing like a rebirth. So it's going to be a new cycle. So what we're going to see for the next month, 28 days, is change. We're going to see lots of shifts revolving around money, breakdown of money, resources, government officials, women in power. And you guys are going to see stuff immediately. Within 48 hours, you're going to start seeing a lot of this change. And I'm anticipating, just because of the gangbusters of planets, that the full moon in about 2 weeks' time, and I've looked at it, is going to be quite intense, because it's going to be around 27 degrees. So it's actually going to oppose Pluto. So the next 2 weeks is very eventful. Is the word that I would use. It's eventful. And I think that we're not really going to start to see our way through some of this still for another month. Just know that there is a lot of needing to change and adapt on the agenda for the month ahead. On the 3rd of the month, there we go, we've got Moon conjunct Pluto and Venus in Capricorn. So that's when the intensity kind of kicks in. Intense stuff. Suddenly we realize that change, transformation, death, rebirth themes need to happen, right? And it's been my experience, having seen Saturn through these degrees, last year. I talk a lot about how Saturn went in and out of the last degrees of Capricorn, and we saw that those were lockdowns. We think back to also what was happening the very beginning of the year in 2020 when 2021, when all of this stuff was kind of happening and we had a Mercury retrograde. I think that we're going to see similarities to the beginning of last year. So it's a lot of like, well, how are we handling it? What are we doing? Are we, opening things back up or not? Boundaries, walls, limitations. This is what we see with the late degrees of Capricorn. And I'm waiting to see what's going to happen with a lot of government officials. I'm waiting to see what's going to happen with spending and stuff relating to, where our money and resources are going, at least here in the United States. There may be new plans that are put in action, especially because Venus can have a lot to do with health, relating to, funding for health, for wellness. There's also going to be this intensified continuation of Venus-Pluto themes. So women's bodies, women's rights, reproductive rights, things relating to the Roe versus Wade stuff with the Supreme Court, continuation of probably lots of shocks and scandals is what I'm anticipating, especially the end of January with the Maxine trial. So there's going to be a really heavy Venus-Pluto theme really for the next month. With all the sextiles to Neptune, is it going to release secrets and things that have been hidden, and are they becoming unveiled? Or is it going to be situations where things are being kind of swept under the rug and kind of being hidden? You know, the sextile can work one of two different ways. It's hard to say. So we'll have to see how that pans out. Regardless, a new moon is new opportunities to build towards something for the next 6 months, but you'll actually really start to see over the next 2 weeks, those energies really intensify until we get to the full moon. It's a great check-in point to see like, okay, am I dealing with what I need to deal with or not? So be open to the change and the innovation that's going to come from this new moon, guys. I think it's intense, but it's positive stuff. All right, so let's go ahead and get into how this is going to affect each and every one of the 12 signs. I'm going to talk about where the new moon is in your chart. Listen for your sun, moon, and rising. All do apply. I feel that the sun predictions are more geared towards the ego, the self, what you need, what you're working on, what you're changing. But the rising may be how it literally plays out. And certainly the moon, you feel that on a very emotional level. So I would listen to all of them. I'm also going to tell you guys where Jupiter is in your chart now, that Jupiter has moved into Pisces. So very nice ingress with that transition. Jupiter going into a water sign. It loves being in Pisces. The only challenge is there can be some problems with boundaries. So just be mindful of that. All right, so let's go ahead and get into it. And we're going to start with Aries. So for Aries, sun, moon, and rising, the new moon's in your 10th house. It's safe to say that there's big changes happening with how you show up in the world. For some Aries, it seems like going from, you know, being employed to not, and now looking for a new job, or finding that there's like a bit of like a musical chair is happening at work, like having to fulfill a couple of different positions, or maybe trying to find somebody to fill in something, or maybe you're having to stand in for a boss or a superior. For some of you guys, it also relates to your responsibilities with parenting, one of your parents even, or you being a parent to your own children. I've seen some Aries risings also that have had lots of changes within their relationships, especially if you have lots of Libra in your 7th. So it can feel like a lot more responsibility than usual. But I love the fact that you've got a new moon in your career sector with Venus and Pluto. It tells me that you're planning for big changes on the horizon. So in that case, it's positive. You've got Jupiter in your 12th house in Pisces, which is your visions for the future, your dreams, your inspirations, your spiritual beliefs. And these two are working in unison. So there is some sense of like, if you're not working, or if there's a period of downtime with work, Jupiter in your 12th is like meditate, reflect, create a little bit of time every day dedicated to your spiritual studies or meditation, or learning about a new culture, or learning about some kind of, you know, bigger professional goals or plans, and kind of strategizing. I see the 12th house as like a private space. So you may not be working, but you may have an office space that you're like, I'm committed to strategizing and envisioning what I want my career to look like. So in that case, pretty positive. And we've got the King of Pentacles, so appropriate. It's almost like learning to be the boss, and whether that's literally or just really bossing up in a sense of life and being like, you know what, I know that if I don't start strategizing and like really thinking about what's important and taking the time and dedicating it every day, then change is not going to happen. Now, King of Coins is a cool card because it can talk about new financial opportunities. It can talk about managing something, being the boss, being an owner, getting ready to launch something, taking something over, making more money. It's abundance, it's health. So very positive card coming up for you. It can be that you're dealing with a Capricorn or a Taurus or a Virgo. Equally, it can just kind of talk about these traits in you becoming more serious about getting ahead of things and feeling like you're on top of your finances is key. So very positive for you, Aries. You've got Taurus and Taurus rising. You've got a new moon in a sister sign, and it is in your 9th house, which is about beliefs and travel, law, publishing, higher education. So this is interesting because you've got that new moon happening in aspect to Uranus in your sign. So it's all about what you're willing to change, what you're believing in, where you're traveling, what your philosophies may be. And then you've also got Jupiter moving into your 11th house. So you're making new friends. So you've got new networks, new communities, and it'll really take through the spring of next year to see this come full circle. Many Taurus risings are going to see this uptick in just unusual friend groups, people who are spiritually minded, people who are more open, probably culturally diverse, and you're going to find that there's new opportunities to network with some of these people. And it's going to kind of go in the direction of where you're going with like wanting more independence in your life and like wanting more authenticity, right? So it's a great new moon for you. And you get the Ace of Pentacles. Very interesting. So once again, another Pentacle card. So it's kind of like, all right, this is my idea. This is what I'm investing in. This is what I'm doing. If it's investing in yourself, if it's things relating to your body, your health, I think of the trines from your 9th to your 1st. Like, are you learning about a new health technique? Are you deciding that you want to read up on a new diet? Are you deciding that you want to change something with supplements? This can be very physical. This can also be about you learning more about money or international markets or kind of currency exchanges or anything related to that, which makes sense with your 9th house. Maybe wanting to do work that is going to be about writing or publishing, teaching, educating, something that is going to be valuable in some way. Very positive. Now we got Gemini. So this is a new moon in your 8th house, Gemini, and it's all about transformation. How you handle responsibility, how you handle power. I think of the 8th house being other people's money. So a new moon there in aspect to Taurus in your 12th tells me that you're starting to get a little bit more either spiritual or more visual when it comes to the money that you would like to obtain. Be a great time for anything magical relating to abundance. And you've got Jupiter in your 10th house. So a wonderful energy that gives you the opportunity. It could be you, it could be a spouse, because you've got the 8th house, which is other people, which are having major changes in their career. So I could see like Jupiter, which rules your house of marriage, going into the 10th house is like, you know, your spouse or your boyfriend, girlfriend, business partner, whatever, they have a major breakthrough, making more money. They're in turn, you know, it's bringing more to both of you guys collectively. There's a lot of like working stuff out right now in your chart relating to like joint resources, paying stuff off, debt, credit, waiting on an insurance payment perhaps, or a settlement. So I feel like for you, this new moon is going to help you get your goals in order when it comes to where you stand financially with other people, and whether that's a partner or perhaps maybe changing fees or what you want to be paid. Jupiter's in your 10th house, so you have major negotiation power for naming your price, right? So it's like some of you guys are going to see a major uptick in your career. There in turn, maybe you get better benefits. You're going to get stock options. Maybe you're just saving more money, putting more money in the bank, right? Paying things off. So this is a really positive time when it comes to your resources and how you're working with other people. If you're in a business or a position also where you're taking a percent of other people, let's say you represent somebody, your fees may go up in the new year. You may bring more in that sense, and that I think is probably a positive idea considering how many planets are going to move through your 10th house in the spring, where there's just going to be a lot of action. And time is money, Gemini. Time is money. We've got the King of Pentacles coming up for you. Excuse me, not King of Pentacles, the Knight of Pentacles. So many Pentacles, guys. This is wild. This is talking about taking action in regards to your resources. This is talking about a message coming involving money. So it may be that somebody calls you and goes, hey, you know, like your investment paid off, or, you know, we want to help you fund something, or we want to give you this bonus. So this is really positive. I think the other thing is that the knights of all, you know, of all the knights, the Knight of Coins is definitely one that takes his time, follows up, like really sees everything through. Like there is some sense of him really getting everything handled in a timely manner, but it takes a little bit longer, right? So you may feel like there's some kind of delay with getting news that you've been waiting for, and perhaps maybe you have a breakthrough and you're learning how to be a little bit better with your spending. It's kind of the feeling that I'm getting. Watch for news from somebody. It can be a text or an email or a phone call. Then we've got Cancer and Cancer rising. This is a new moon in your 7th house of relationships and partnerships, marriage. And you've got Jupiter in your 9th, which represents travel, publishing, education, your beliefs. So I guess the positive of this is like renewals in relationships, talking more about the future, where you see the relationship going, what the vision for the future looks like, where you guys want to travel, maybe what workshops you want to take together, maybe you want to write a book together. So that's really positive from the 7th to the 9th. The challenging thing is for Cancer and Cancer risings right now, relationships are not easy because you've got a lot of conjunctions to planets like Pluto in your 7th house. And I feel like there's like this kind of moment where it's like a make or break situation with relationships for you. You may be seeking some kind of spiritual counseling. Like maybe you feel like you need to go and see like a reader or a spiritual advisor or a priest or a rabbi, like somebody to be like, somebody who's going to give you insight, very like Hierophant almost, for whatever's going on in your relationship. Now, if it's not a romantic relationship or a marriage, it can be a business partnership, and there can be some sense for some of you guys going, this ain't working, I need to see an attorney, or I need to talk to somebody about my legal rights. That would be Jupiter in your 9th. So the positive thing is that if you need to speak with somebody to give you insight, if you need a new mentor or a guru, if you need a new doctor, if you need a lawyer, if you need a teacher, or a professional to help you through whatever struggle you're having right now, there is somebody out there who will show up, who will help you. You will see this very soon. It can take up until when the Sun or Venus ingresses into your 9th house. I feel like that a new moon in your 7th house is wonderful because it's giving you the opportunity to wipe the slate clean. So if you've been single and unwilling to date or mingle, now you may set intentions too. If you've been in a relationship, you want it to go to the next level, you'll have that conversation, you might do that. So sometimes I see within 2 weeks of the full moon, you're going to see where things land. If it's a turbulent 2 weeks in a relationship, the full moon in 2 weeks may manifest as you being like, that's it, I'm out. On the flip side, it can be breaking points where I've seen lots of people who are Cancer risings who have been getting engaged or talking about getting married, buying houses, talking about having kids. So the Venus retrograde doesn't have to be super negative. So let's see what the cards say for you. We've got the Knight of Wands. This makes me feel like you're dealing with somebody who is like a bull in a china shop. Like somebody who's kind of aggressive, not thinking things through, short-tempered, somebody who is just all action. Now, if it's not the case, it can be that you're talking about going somewhere, talking about planning a trip. So knights like to travel, they like to go places because they're on a horse. So this can be talking about like creative projects you guys want to work on, places you want to travel, places that you want to visit. If you're dealing with a fire sign, so if you're a Cancer or a Cancer rising and you've got like a Leo or a Sag or an Aries in your life, this can represent them being like, let's speed things up, let's get things moving. I would say take your time with some of the transits. The next 2 weeks are really going to give you a gauge as to where you land. On the flip side though, this can be about sharing your enthusiasm about where you're going, literally or emotionally together. So that way you can kind of create some forward motion and you can see movement, but it's going to fall one of 2 ways. Okay. Hopefully that's helpful for you. We've got Leo and Leo rising. This is your 6th house where you have a new moon, which represents health, your schedule, pets, coworkers, especially Capricorn. I feel like this is your work schedule and your commitment or your dedication to your health and what is or is not healthy for you. We've got this Jupiter in Pisces that has moved into your 8th house, which is all about transformation, detox, purging. Leos and Leo rising. If you guys have health goals, if you want to stop drinking, if you want to stop smoking, if you want to stop doing recreational drugs, if you need to get serious about having a schedule, working out, being healthy, now is the time to get the show on the road. I think the Venus retrograde in your 6th, conjunct Pluto, is literally about detoxing. And it's not just unhealthy habits with what you're consuming. It can be who you're around, what relationships you're in, what work environments you're in. There can be lots of changes going on here. Coworkers may be calling in sick more often. Somebody may leave a project for you to finish and you feel like you have to carry the team. I get the impression that with Jupiter in your 8th house, there is going to be a positive side. Like there is going to be better mental health that's coming if you make some of these changes. There may be benefactors that come into your life also, people who are willing to be generous with you or willing to share and give. Some of you guys are also thinking more long-term because Jupiter rules in your chart, your 5th house, merging with a romantic partner, joint resources, how working with another person can benefit you physically. Some of you guys are opting to get healthy and make some lifestyle changes. If you're trying to get pregnant as well, Jupiter in the 8th house can definitely be a year marked with pregnancy. So I'd say like detoxing and purging and the willingness to transform, not just physically, but emotionally and psychologically as well, is a big theme for you, Leos. The Magician, great card. So as above, so below. So there's a lot of like things that are changing and transforming that first start with your mind and your ideas and what you're manifesting, what you're saying is going to happen. Be mindful of your words. You're kind of like speaking things into reality. So if there's like this common theme where you're getting in the car and you're driving to work every day and you're like, I hate my job. It would not surprise me if there's like a lot of staff changes or things that happen at work and you're just like, I can't take this anymore, right? Or, you know, I can't keep eating all the cake. And you keep eating the cake and then finally like the cake makes you sick type stuff. You're going to find that there is something going on like energetically where you're kind of putting things in motion. Changing and flipping the mindset is everything, realizing that once you have the ability to do that, you can create change and really integrating and coming up with like a healthier schedule of some kind. So if you believe it, it can happen. For Virgo and Virgo rising, you got a new moon in your 5th house, which deals with romance, creativity, self-expression, children, and you've got Jupiter that's moved into your 7th house of relationships, marriage, and committed partnerships. So wow, Virgo and Virgo rising, man, you guys are on the top of the list for real significant love in this next year. I think about the new moon in your 5th, which is meant to get you really creative and feeling more lovable and excited about the future of your romantic partnerships. You may fall in love with something or feel like you're falling in love with a person or a hobby. Those of you guys who are trying to conceive, certainly a new moon in your 5th house is a good omen. You've got really good transits that are about love and creativity and giving birth to projects. It doesn't always have to be kids. It can be a side hustle that you really are passionate about that turns into something big, you know? And the cosmos right now are working with you with all this energy in Capricorn and Taurus to get you thinking about how you can expand in your heart space. Now, Jupiter in your 7th house is definitely, especially for the next couple of months, expanding committed relationships. So some of you guys who are single will meet people who are very prominent, especially if you're a woman, because Jupiter can represent the husband. If you're having a Jupiter return and you're a Virgo sun or rising, that's going to be a year of optimism and possibly spiritual enlightenment, maybe even traveling, you know, and I'm so excited to see the 5th house work in unison with the 7th. So magical things can happen when you have those transits kind of happening, and it really helps you go deeper into partnership with other people. You get the King of Swords. So it's all about how you're communicating and really owning your words. And I feel like if you're somebody who's in a creative field that involves screenwriting or storytelling or visually putting things together and like having to tell people a story, this is a wonderful card. It's also about speaking, I feel like, passionately about something. And if it's not a hell yes, it's a hell no, and learning to really determine what makes your heart sing. Now, the Knight of Swords can also be like an air sign that comes into your life. So it can be an Aquarius or a Gemini, or it can be a Libra who also helps you with the process of this, of like helping you determine what you do or do not love. So if you're like a Virgo and you're trying to write more, it can be like a writing coach. It can be perhaps even like a mentor or somebody who comes in, or even like a career coach who like helps you kind of work through things and kind of come up with what your ideas are, what you want to be doing, what you have to say. If you have to get something written down, that's really important. If you have to have a heart-to-heart conversation and share your mind with somebody, it's saying you're going to have the ability to do so. So that's very exciting. We've got for Libra rising, this is a new moon in your 4th house, which deals with home, family, emotions, real estate, and roots. And you've got Jupiter that is in Pisces that is moving in to your 6th house, which is your office space, your pets, your health, anything relating to your schedule. For Libras, it's interesting because I feel like a new moon in your 4th is definitely going to have you very emotional. So it's thinking about new emotional kind of, I guess, grounding work, right? It's like focusing on how you want to feel. The 4th house does represent the family. It also represents the past. So there can be this sense of, this is how things used to be. This is how things are now. This is how I want it to be. So there's a lot of sorting and sifting through stuff, and it's going to be like that for a couple months. What I like about Jupiter moving into your 6th house for Libra is I feel like it's going to give you the opportunity to enjoy your day-to-day schedule more. It's going to give you the opportunity to have more time for your spiritual studies or more time for health. So if you're like, I need to go to the gym more, I need to be eating better, this will allow you to actually see the benefit of health, but more emotionally or spiritually, right? So you might find that working out puts you in a better mood, or cutting certain foods actually makes you feel better. Still a little sleepy though with those transits in your 6th house. You may need more rest than usual. So you're realizing that maybe the way that you have worked before, that schedule doesn't quite work. Maybe you do need to sleep in. Maybe you work better at night. So some of you guys are still moving that around. I would say with positive aspects from your 4th to your 6th, it's things like, is it time to reorganize your house? Do you need to clean out your kitchen? Are you wanting to redecorate, but you need to wait until after the Venus retrograde? Use the energy to move through emotions and ask yourself, how do you feel in your home? What needs to change? Jupiter in your 6th can bring you people like housekeepers. It can bring you assistants. It can bring you bigger office spaces. So maybe you don't have to be working from home so much. It can also bring new pets and stuff into the family, which ironically, you would think that it would cause stress, but for a Libra chart, it's going to make you realize like, wow, I'm really passionate about this. I'm going to make the time, and like somehow taking care of a dog is actually going to give you more mental, emotional clarity. So let's see what the cards say. We've got 9 of Wands. It's a big job. There's something that you're dealing with right now that's a big job. And I don't know if this is like realizing you need to move, or you need to expand, or that you know, maybe you need to kind of clean out the garage. There's something where you're just like, oh my gosh, I'm just so exhausted. I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I can do this alone. 9 of Wands is also wounding. So it can talk about from the past that there were situations that happened where you had to just figure out stuff on your own, and you had to learn to cope and deal with stuff by yourself. So maybe part of what's happening is that you're having to learn to open up and ask for help rather than doing everything yourself. For Scorpio and Scorpio risings, this is a new moon in Capricorn happening in your 3rd house of siblings. It's also communication, cars, sometimes gadgets. A new moon here is great for like if you need to get a new computer, if you need to get an oil change, if you need to have your car checked out, if you're having problems with a cell phone, like getting it fixed. These are kinds of things that you can be doing with the new moon here. It's great if you're somebody who's like into writing or journaling. It can be a time where you're more committed consistently to your routines and making time to work on that, or even like social media, or if you're building a website. The 3rd house is what you do on a daily basis. Now, because it rules siblings as well, there can be this theme of like something going on with a sibling, talking more to a sibling, going back and forth with a sibling. The 3rd house can sometimes represent moves as well. So whether that's moving around your schedule, moving around your general environment, organizing, these things come up for you. And the 5th house is where Jupiter has moved into. So the 5th house is about children, romance, creativity. For many Scorpio risings, I feel like this is about dedicating more time on a regular basis to whatever you're thinking or how you're communicating. So whether that's having more meetings, having regular meetings every other week with a team, saying, hey, I'm going to call my sister more, my cousin more. There can be this theme of also creating more time because the 5th house is what we love and what we enjoy. So for Scorpio, you know, having Jupiter move into this part of your chart is like the potential to make more money through a hobby, right? Because Jupiter rules your 2nd house of money. It can also be what you're investing in and whether or not that's paying off. So you might kind of feel like in order for you to get more work done in a timely manner, you need to update things. Maybe you need new applications. Maybe you need new software. Maybe you need to upgrade a laptop. So things like that can actually speed up and kind of expedite the process so you can get more done. And I think that Jupiter going into the 5th house for some Scorpio risings can be like good news that a family member is having a baby, somebody's moving, or maybe they're launching a business online. And Scorpios who are trying to get pregnant, just be mindful, Jupiter is going to be in your 5th house all year. So that's something else that you're going to see that's going to happen. So especially in water signs, I feel like Jupiter in a water sign, if you are a Cancer or a Scorpio or a Pisces, just be mindful that pregnancies are possible with these transits. The card that came up for you is the Two of Cups. So this is interesting because this talks about partnership. And when the Two of Cups comes up, it's like what somebody has to offer you. So it's a lot of like, I can do this, can you do that? Let's work together. This is a card of union, relationships, not necessarily marriage, but partnering with somebody and finding somebody who can help you. And so there may be more emphasis in working with another person or communicating more with another person. There can also be this theme of like sharing what makes you happy, right? Because the Two of Cups is like going and getting dinner with somebody or having a drink or cheersing them and celebrating something. So there is some theme of like really focusing on what your goals are and what makes you happy and being able to celebrate what's happening right now. So there's definitely some kind of good news that's coming with this as well. All right, so for Sag and Sag rising, this is a new moon in your 2nd house, which represents like resources, money, self-esteem, values. And you've got Jupiter that's moving into your 3rd house, which is all about siblings, cars, gadgets. So for Sag and Sag rising, I wonder, are some of you guys having to spend a little bit more money, maybe on transportation? Is there something like that going on for you? You know, we're going to find that over the next, excuse me, I take that back. Jupiter's moving into your 4th house. So the new moon's in your 2nd of resources and Jupiter's moving into your 4th house of home and family. So are you spending a little bit more money on your cost of living? Are you guys reevaluating how much money you want to spend on rent versus buying? Are you thinking about investing in a house? Are you looking at properties? Are you thinking about moving? Are you thinking about doing this with family? Is there some kind of family business or family investment that you're thinking about making, right? Jupiter in the 4th is wonderful if you're looking to move. I feel like that's going to be there really all year long. You're going to see it drop into Aries and then it'll retrograde back. Definitely looking is a good idea right now. I wouldn't say buying because you do have a lot of energy that's getting ready to retrograde in your 2nd house of money and resources. So there is a sense of like either being more cautious with your spending right now because you want to make a purchase, or maybe you're realizing that there's just more expenses on your home or perhaps even in your family if you're having to help support a family member. That can be going on. But I like the 2nd and the 4th house because it's very physical and emotional. So it's what you feel about your body and how changes in your body physically make you feel, or changes in your home or just your immediate environment, how that makes you feel as well. So let's take a look, because I have a feeling that many Sagittariuses actually in the new year may move or change homes. That's the vibe that I'm kind of getting with this. They just need to make sure that everything lines up financially first. So watch the big spending and things that are going on. A new moon in your 2nd is great for setting intentions in regards to resources, abundance, money, magic. Venus is going to be there for a couple months. So it tells me that on one hand, there can be overspending. On the other hand, if you're curbing that, you can be able to save towards a goal. So if you do want to make some bigger investments next year, you can. We've got the Knight of Wands. So interesting, because this is like saying like, I want to go, I want to break free. It's time to move. Like, and it can be more moving your body. It doesn't have to be physically moving. So if you can't physically move or have a change in your environment, it might be just more about moving your body. I get the impression also that this does kind of talk about you becoming more passionate. You know, Mars is still in your sign right now. You may feel like with the squares to Neptune that are going to be coming up, like where is home? And you're realizing home is within yourself. So building your home space, having your own private space if you live with other people, reimagining the idea of home and that it doesn't have to be a physical place, that it can be within you is very important. There can be another fire sign that comes into your life. So there can be another Sag, Leo, or Aries that shows up that helps you with this process of focusing, I think, more on your resources. So somebody who's excited to work with you, talk to you, help you get the ball rolling if you want to make more money or if you want to make investments, okay? All right, so for Capricorn and Capricorn rising, this is a new moon in your 1st house. So it's all about you, yourself, your body. You are majorly under construction right now, from everything to how you feel, to what you're doing for work, to what you wear on a daily basis. Please don't cut your bangs or pierce your nose. Don't do anything crazy right now. This new moon is wonderful because it's going to give you really a fresh start when it comes to how you carry yourself and how you perceive yourself. So if you're wanting to make changes to your body or your appearance, this is the moon that you set those intentions. Jupiter has moved into your 3rd house of siblings, cars, gadgets, short distance travel. So some of you guys are wanting to communicate and express yourself differently. Jupiter there has you learning more about self-awareness, maybe meditation, maybe you're journaling more, so you're taking time to actually really integrate that Sagittarius 12th house of yours, and just to really sit and think and manifest, right? How you're feeling and your visions for the future. I feel like it's going to have you thinking about things more emotionally and less like logically, right? And so Capricorn being an earth sign, there is this sense of like wanting to physically stay busy or accomplish things or get things done. But if you're a Capricorn who's been experiencing burnout, you're really emotional, you don't know why, Jupiter moving into your 3rd house can be wonderful for writing, expressing yourself, reading books on meditation or self-help or self-awareness. You may be planning a trip, maybe you're on the internet looking for places you want to travel. And it may get you more just emotionally aware, and you might just notice that you're just a little bit more sensitive than usual with Jupiter in the 3rd, especially when you communicate and you express yourself to some extent. There can be more communications also with family members who live at a distance or who may live abroad. That's something else that I would say. Jupiter in the 3rd, some of you guys are going to travel more in the new year. Some of you guys are going to get new cars. Some of you guys are going to get new computers. You may be opting to learn a new language. That's something else that we see with that aspect as well. So we've got the 7 of Swords coming up. It's like, can I trust this? Can I not? Can I trust this? And I don't know if it's trusting yourself. I don't know if it's just trusting in the direction of where things are going. The 7 of Swords is a card that represents leaving something behind or losing something or having something taken from you. I think about Venus retrograding in your 1st and all the planets in your 1st, where maybe it's a matter of you learning to trust yourself again, learning to, open up again to other people, to new experiences, to self-love. And maybe you're dealing with some situation where there's been hurt or distrust in the past, and you're having to learn to overcome that and be open to other people again. But the 7 of Swords still tells me that there's some energy that's going on where if you're dealing with a certain situation, I think of Jupiter in your 3rd. Jupiter is the truth teller. So there can be some squares that can come up that can bring up the truth of, what a family member is really saying, or how a partner really feels, or what somebody's really doing behind closed doors. So pay attention to those intuitive hits if you feel like something is off, because this can be a card about somebody deceiving you, unfortunately. For Aquarius and Aquarius rising, this is a new moon in your 12th, so you're seeking rest, recuperation, privacy. You can be feeling a little bit in your feelings. You can be bugging out a little bit when you've got a new moon in your 12th, and there's quite a few retrogrades in your 12th too. So you may be feeling a little bit more isolated, like you want your own space, you want to be left alone, you want to be private. This is natural and normal when you're coming into your birthday season. So the month before your birthday, you've got sometimes a planetary alignment happening in your 12th. That's about things naturally coming to an end, right? So if this is happening in Capricorn, jobs ending, responsibilities ending, wrapping up problems that you've had with a superior, a boss, maybe a parent. So this is not unusual. And you just need a lot more rest than usual. With so many retrogrades going on here, it's like your dreams are probably pretty active right now. And I would say pay attention to that, because it can be giving you some insight and helping kind of, at least in a more astral way, help you navigate what you're doing in the waking world. Now, the good news is Jupiter's hanging out in your 2nd house. So it will be there for the next year off and on. It's going to expand your resources, your money, your self-esteem. I think it's going to possibly bring you financial support in miraculous and unexpected ways, especially when it conjuncts Jupiter. It can seem like a dream come true scenario where money comes out of the blue, and it's something that you're really passionate about and that you enjoy doing. It may also involve something relating to maybe self-help or some kind of nonprofit stuff. That's the other vibe that I'm kind of getting from this. So when you've got this combination of a new moon in your 12th and a lot of new energy in your 2nd, if you're feeling under the weather, eat well, get lots of liquids, take your supplements, get adequate rest with planets in Pisces. It's really important also to not let stress or worry get in the way. Certain things are flushing out, so that way you can have new resources coming in the new year. And I can't wait for Aquariuses to have that Jupiter, Venus, Neptune conjunction happening. Like, whoa, that's going to be so amazing for art and creativity and money, right? So you have the Four of Wands. So reason to celebrate. This is a card that's social. It can be talking about like people wanting you, inviting you to parties, saying, hey, come out, let's do something. It's the holidays, come to this holiday party, and you want to, but maybe you're not feeling it. There's some energy that's at odds here. Now, Four of Wands also is a card that talks about celebrations, birthdays, engagements, weddings, baby showers. So there's some kind of good news coming. Maybe perhaps you're celebrating something like this and people are bringing you gifts. Because Jupiter in the second can be literal gifts that are coming for you. So this is a positive card. It's saying people want to spend time with you. They want to see you. I look at the energy that's in your 12th house and I'm like, you're not feeling it, maybe closer to your birthday. So maybe there's events that you're looking forward to that are going to be coming up in the new year. But this can be a card that comes up associated with weddings or live events or outdoor events or gatherings or get-togethers. It's also about celebrating smaller goals. So giving yourself credit for how far you have come and like hitting those mini goals before you get to your end-all be-all goal. Reflect on the last year. See what's happened for you. How many changes you've made. It's safe to say with Saturn in your sign and squares to Uranus, that's been happening in your 4th. Maybe just being here is the goal, making it to the end of the year in one piece. Certainly, there has been some friction that's happened with work and also family responsibilities, and there's some sense of you still needing independence that's kind of coming through. So I would say maybe finding the middle ground is if you have had more time apart from certain relatives or family responsibilities, that agreement to show up and at least be present for the end of the year or the holidays is kind of your give back. That could be what's going on. All right, so last but not least, we got Pisces, and this is a new moon in your 11th house, which is all about goals and friendships and networking. There can be some really powerful people that come in the next couple of weeks for you that you may become friends with, who then in turn introduce you to other people that help you make moves when it comes to your professional career, right? So really start looking around at your friends, Pisces, and asking yourself, like, am I surrounding myself with people who inspire me, who are also really goal-oriented? They're actually making a difference in the world. They are successful, right? And that's going to help kind of, I think, give you the opportunity to focus more on the direction that you want to be going in with your career. So I think of like Neptune and Jupiter now in your sign, and it's like very spiritual. It's very when the time is right. There is this sense of becoming very, very, very in tune to the cosmos and a lot more kind of psychic or intuitive than you already usually are. And the sextiles to your 11th house is like just knowing which friend to call up and ask for assistance. Just knowing or getting a friend who goes, hey, I think that you would actually want to network and join this group. It might be really good for you professionally. Like things are going to start kind of coming together in a very strange but very magical way for you. Now, the new moon that's happening is going to be taking place. Let's see. The new moon is in your 11th house of goals. Jupiter is in your 1st house. So optimistic, positive, there's going to be a light that's kind of shined on you. It's a really great time for your professional goals and you being seen as almost like a leader or an innovator in whatever it is that you're doing. I think it may give you the opportunity to travel more for work or to explore more or to have contacts with people in other places, hence all the energy in your 11th house. So people who you might be meeting with, groups at a distance. When these two work together, it's almost like you tell your friends, oh, I'm just looking for the perfect job. And they go, what are you good at? Well, I'm good at this, 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 and this. And then 2 weeks later, they call you and they go, oh my gosh, we have an opening at our company. Like, I'm going to set you up with, HR or whatever to meet with them to see if you'd be a good candidate for the job. So there's something going on with like sharing your goals with groups of people and talking about your visions and how you're feeling, and those kind of coming together very beautifully. This card jumped out and it is the 5 of Wands. So interesting that the energy in your chart, and maybe this is like Mars that's going through your 10th house right now, there is still a sense of like feeling like you need to fight to be on top, or needing to fight to get work done. I would really pay attention to the dates that I gave you in the new year, when Mars is going to activate that 12-degree point again. Actually, let me just give that to you so you don't have to scroll all the way back. Mars on the 30th. So Moon Mars is like somebody who might reach out to you on the 30th and go, are you available? We want to talk to you. We're hiring. Like, you know, give us a call. And there's this feeling of like needing to be on top of something, like needing to be the best. 5 of Wands is almost like competing or having some kind of conflict, or there being like a lot of back and forth that you're having with work. Be careful, those of you guys who are overworking. The Mars square that's happening for you in later in the week, going into the new year, it can have you sick too. If you're overworking and not taking care of your body, you can find that you're actually having issues and you're getting run down. So I would say learning to find work that kind of works with your flow and not losing track of the vision for where you're going. Mars in the South Node still, that's hanging out somewhere in your 10th house, can still be about severing, letting go of responsibilities, letting go of the job. So that can still be happening. But all in all, I would say the transits are actually pretty positive for you. And you're really going to start seeing your way through this, especially as we get to the end of Capricorn, the beginning of Aquarius season. All right, guys, hopefully that was helpful for you. We got our recap of 2021 done. We talked all about the most important transits and how it has manifested for us. So we have kind of a game plan moving forward. Talked all about the astro weather for the week up until the 3rd, and my 2 cents on the new moon in Capricorn. So I appreciate you guys staying for this entire video. Please do consider joining my subscriptions. It makes it possible for me to keep doing these videos. By subscribing, you make it possible for me to make the time to create these videos, do my research, and create extra content that I am trying to do. If you guys are interested, there's a new Midheaven podcast that we've put out that's all about the most important transits of 2022. It is a 2-part episode, so you're going to get part 1 this week, part 2 next week. You don't want to miss that. It's with myself and the Peace Dealer. And I'll be here live on New Year's Day at 11 a.m. Pacific time. Join me. It's going to be donation-based. I'm creating all kinds of stuff to talk to you guys about my take on 2022. We're going to talk about and go deep into all of the transits that I feel like are most important and some of the themes of 2022 and how it's going to affect each and every one of the 12 signs. If you want to join me, awesome. Make sure you save the date and make sure that you're clicking the bell so you get subscription alerts so you know when I'm going live or when I put a show out. And last but not least, 2022 booking is open. I got some openings in February if you want to get on the books and do a reading with me. My readings are 30 minutes or an hour long. They're live on Zoom. We get to do it together, talk about whatever you like, transits. We can do solar returns, synastry, composite charts, or just better understanding your natal chart. So check out my links below, my website at beyondtheveiltarot.com if you'd like to get a reading with me. All right, guys, enjoy the rest of the week. Have a very happy New Year's. I anticipate being back very soon. I'm going to try to get a live in here sometime this week before I go live later this week. You have any comments or questions, you let me know in the comments below. I always love hearing from you guys. Otherwise, I will see you next year. Take care.